Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell icon so you never miss a video from Radio 1.
All right. Welcome to the show. I am so thrilled because the person I'm speaking with on the show today has a lot more things in common with me than I realized. We both were born and brought up in Bangalore. And also, he also went to the same school that I did. I'm a proud Josephite, so is he. This morning on the show is Hakimuddin Shabbir Habibulla. Hakim, it's good to see you. Thank you so much for joining us on the show. How are you?
Doing great, Kay. Really appreciate you having me on your show. And I look forward to this chat.
Yeah, I mean, when we get closer to the Tokyo Olympics 2021, I guess we're finally there. I think a lot of us are just like fingers crossed, hoping it happens. And there's a section that is hoping it doesn't happen as well, because of the risks at large. But of course, you competed in the men's 200 meter freestyle at the 2000 Summer Olympics in Sydney. Fun fact, a little earlier, I just spoke with somebody who was in the contingent with you. And that is, of course, Nisha Millet. So, so it's great to be chatting with all of you guys to get to know your journeys and things like that. But how has it been? Does every time the Olympics come close, does it rekindle a lot of memories personally for you?
Absolutely. The Olympics is it's like the peak event for any athlete. It's a dream that all of us work really hard to realize. And absolutely. So every 4 years, it definitely, does bring back memory. In fact, for someone like me, it's almost every year. Come August, September, it's a celebration. If every 4 years, it becomes even bigger. When we have, everyone else preparing and everyone else's focus coming on it. But for me, it's almost every year that I continue to celebrate the journey.
And when it comes closer to this date, are you always like, oh man, I want to do that again? I want to be there again. That energy is just infectious. It's just something else. What's probably the fondest memory you have of the 2000 Summer Olympics in Sydney? If I could dial it back for you a little bit, what is your most favorite memory? Something that sticks up in your head, and every time you hear the Olympics, that memory comes up. What is it for you?
It's the memory of feeling that you're second to none. It's that particular feeling that that you're the best of your country, you're the best from the system that you come from. And even though you're sitting next to people who've broken world records and won gold medals and you have not, but the whole environment makes you feel like you're second to none. Everyone really appreciates and celebrates you for your journey. And I think that's the important one, because each one has a unique story, and each one, whether they've just qualified or whether they won a medal, they all have equal respect for each other. So I remember the first few days I would go running around with my autograph book to because you're living in a space where you're brushing shoulders with legends of sport and beyond who desperately want to be in the same environment to brush shoulders with the elite athletes. So you're in the midst of royalty, literally, both from the sport world and beyond. And, after the first few days, I just kept my autograph book in my bag and I said, hey, wait a minute. I'm one of them. So
that's a big feeling. And also you get to represent your country. There's no bigger glory.
Absolutely. There's absolutely nothing bigger than, such a platform to represent the country. And it's definitely a massive honor to carry that flag, on your shoulder.
Super. Now, Hakim, being a person who, specialized in middle distance freestyle events, I want to dial it back a little bit. What had that water bug bite you? Like, what was the moment that started off the journey for you? Could you tell us that story?
So, for me, my journey began with my parents literally introducing me to the water, because one of my classmates in Sapphires had passed away due to drowning. So one of my classmates, I think I was in the nursery or probably in the LKG, then that when the accident happened. So my parents really thought that if I was introduced to the water, I would be safe. And that was the very basic background. And I started, just splashing around at a hotel pool. It used to be called Hotel Harsha, close to Indian Express Circle. So it was a beautiful space. I would just go and splash around. And it was that, I think about a year or two of just free play that made me really love the water and learn a few basic skills more by accident, before I was formally introduced to it. But because I was enjoying, because I was allowed to just, play, that set a good foundation for me to then enjoy even when I went into the next set of skills. So then when I started
Yeah.
building my formal skills in swimming, I had a good feel for the water, and then the journey became very different, and I was able to cover some good ground at a
Yeah.
very early age.
Yeah, I mean, I was looking at some stuff, and I mean, you challenged four other swimmers in the heat one that happened. So that was, I think, Uzbekistan's two-time losing
I'm
the
bad
name.
at the names.
I'm also horrible at the pronunciation, so I'm not even going to try. But dialing it back to the times that you first started off in swimming, I know for a fact, and I can say that because I'm from the same school. Joseph's encourages swimming and sport in general, like no other school I've seen. I'll be honest, and I'm a proud Josephite. I'm a very, very proud Josephite. So, what were you like in school? Were you the naughty type? Were you the guy bunking classes? Like, oh, I have to go for this match. I have to go for this. I have to go for practice. What kind of guy were you?
I was I was actually, so in my at my time, I was probably the first individual sport athlete that was doing things at a completely different level. So yes, Joseph is a phenomenal. Again, I feel really proud to be a Josephite as well. They really created us amazingly supportive environment for me to pursue what I was really developing into at that point. So, so the school played a tremendous role, and the fact that they had a pool made it even better because, uh,
Not many schools actually had that. It is a luxury, especially in those days.
absolutely, absolutely, and so it did really create a platform for me to showcase my skills. So I remember, when I started off, Joseph was then started at fourth standard. So I remember I was this kid who had just entered school, and I remember beating, the 10th standard hero of swimming at that point. So it became like this massive. So I became known in the school very early because of this. So I just found an old edition of the school annual book,
Yeah.
which had my photo, and I was called Water Baby for the first time in that, and that is a funny thing that stuck after for a while. But it was yes, the pool in the school really did give an additional platform for the skill, like I said, to be showcased. And uh, and then the school, of course, was phenomenal in providing me a lot of leeway and support. Was I the naughty type? No, I wasn't. I think I used to be too tired. I was too tired to be not up to any trick. But a fact that, so while I mentioned about, one of the reasons that my parents put me in swimming was because of a drowning incident that happened. Another, angle to it was, according to my parents, I was a very hyperactive, naughty kid.
Oh, it was
And
to quell all of that. That was,
and so
parents
and
always have
so
these ulterior motives.
and so swimming, became this fantastic thing. I mean, more by accident. Not that my parents had no background in swimming or sport, but it was just by accident that, when they introduced me to the water, they found me coming back home really hungry, so they didn't have to chase me around home to eat. And I slept well. They didn't have to again chase me to go to sleep. So I think it worked well for them. It's an advice that I nowadays give many parents, many young parents. Put your kid into the water, and yeah, you will have,
You'll tire
it'll
them
make your
out.
life easier.
Yeah. So, growing up, and of course, I think sport teaches kids so much, right? You've gone on to also inspire, another generation of sportsmen and sportswomen in the country. How important do you feel is the whole, inculcating that spirit of sportsmanship in kids? Why do you? I know you focus on kids in a lot of ways, in the things that you've done post Olympics. Uh, what's your thoughts on the kids and the future of sport in this country?
So I think fundamentally we need to understand that there are two types of engagements with sport. There is a fundamental engagement, which is sport for life. sport for health, fitness, leisure, recreation, just active, healthy living, which is very, very critical and important for us as a community, as a society, and for us as a country. And I think that is something that needs a tremendous amount of attention. Often, what we've ended up doing is we've always focused on the top end and the more visible end of competitive sport. And that honestly is just for a very small subset. So during my time, I realized that we had this particular approach to sport where you played sport either to win medals or you didn't play sport at all. And that's an important change that I would like to make. I would like to just encourage kids to get out, be active, be healthy, and also changing that very key phrase. Often we still find ourselves trying to play sport to be fit, but we got to flip it because you got to be fit to play sport.
Well said. Yeah, absolutely.
So that basic and fitness levels, pulling that up is something that I'm really keen on encouraging everyone to pay attention to.
Being a person who specifically been born and brought up in Bangalore, I'm just gonna dial this back to school a little bit because it's been in the back of my mind, but I haven't asked you yet. Which house were you in Joseph's?
David's.
No way. Are you serious? I didn't know we had that in common. I was captain of David's also. This is a fun fact.
Oh wow! Okay.
Cool. Okay, that's good to know. Because the minute you were going to say something else, I'm like, okay, let's just stop this. Let's just do something else.
Yeah. So I used to be, I used to contribute quite a few points to the house due to the swimming competitions, and that's how, again, yeah.
That's awesome. I particularly I want to also focus on this Olympics that we got coming up, the Tokyo 2021. Got pushed, of course. It was supposed to be in 2020, but what are your thoughts as we go into this? How do you think the Indian contingent looks, and if you had to give a message to them, what would that be?
So I think these Olympics have probably been one of the craziest lead ups. So I have often tried to imagine putting myself in the shoes of the Indian athletes, or even, the Indian athletes. Let's stick to that. So the Indian athletes, and it's just been a massive roller coaster. The only thing that I couldn't, because I could relate to this quite a bit, though when I was leading up to my own Olympic journey, I remember that there were many uncertainties. Right from the fact that whether would there be a swim team that would go, to whether I would go, to and literally many things hanging by the thread till a month before the games. So by that I can really understand the anxiety, that the uncertainty brings to the athlete of today. And my message to the athletes would be that just and I think most of them. So let me also focus on the fact that today Indian sport and Indian athletes have tremendous amount of international experience, not only to train and compete, but also the kind of professionals that they've been able to attract to India.
If I look at it in the time that you were training and things like that, if you just look at simple academies right across India, forget internationally for a second, you didn't have that kind of privilege. Now there are hazar academies, and you have sports nutritionists, you have sports psychologists, you have everything and anything that you need, honestly. So like you said, yes, different times, but also very, very different circumstances as well. I don't want to say it's easier. I just want to say there's a lot more access now.
Exactly. So even I would agree to that today, the challenges has shifted. So I would always say that many of the challenges exist. It just depends on at which part of the curve, or at what scale you might be dealing with it. But in those challenges, I feel like today, like you said, the access to support is there. There is an access to international know-how and information. So today, the Indian team is going probably better prepared than any time before. So they know what to deal with, despite the uncertainties. They've been today with the kind of international access to information, to results. Everyone is well aware of where they are in terms of their competition. And I believe that India is going in strong. So while the whole lead up and the may not have been perfect or as good as one would have liked it, but the way the pandemic has shaken the box, you really don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah, I know.
And these games,
you see India on top, and then you'll be like, we should have COVID-19 more often.
So I wouldn't jump to the conclusion that we'll necessarily be on top, but can we do significantly better than the past? I do believe that, there are certain sports we've been tremendously close to dominating, but, and I feel like this environment may have given some of them the edge. So I do see a few of the sports where we are strong at to really be able to leverage. There've been other sports that have really taken a beating. A few other sports and a few other athletes that this particular pandemic has not been kind to them. But overall, my outlook for the Indian team is positive. I think they're going to, really make a very strong presence at the games. And then, my message to them, and like I said, it's nothing that they may not already know, but they will have to take it a moment at a time and a day at a time. That's it. There is absolutely nothing else that anybody can do in these situations. So it's just keeping things focused to that moment and making the best of that moment and that opportunity that one may get.
Like you said, put away your autograph book for a while and, soak it all in, like you said, like you did in the, in Sydney.
Well, I'll tell you what, I've seen the Indian athletes evolve tremendously over the last few Olympics.
Yeah, now it's a selfie. It's no longer an autograph book. That's changed.
It's beginning to change, right? And I'll tell you this particular part. So while it's the autograph to the selfie, but I've seen this change, and something that I'm really passionate to also further see change is where we typically would land up being very proud standing beside another achiever and taking a selfie. And now I see the change beginning to happen where the Indian athletes are not overawed and they're not trying to get selfies any longer. And then the next level is where athletes of other countries start taking selfies with Indian athletes. Now that's what for me is that level I believe we have the potential to go to.
Yeah.
So
it's a great way to look at it. It's an awesome way to look at
it. So it's a transition, and I believe that it'll be great to see many more of that happening, where athletes of other countries take selfies with Indian athletes for the right reasons.
Yeah. Hey, Hakim, I never asked you who your inspiration was. Who has been an idol for you over the years? Someone you really look up to with a lot of respect.
So, okay, I mean, growing up, I never had an idol. I mean, and somehow in retrospect, I believe that has really also helped me realize that nobody's perfect. Nobody's got everything. So yes, while I've looked up to many athletes in terms of appreciating their performances, but I've never idolized. I've never had posters of any athletes in my room. I've never really gone, I've never gone overboard trying to idolize anybody. I guess I grew up quite early for my age, and I looked at myself in the mirror and said, hey, how can I be better every day?
Yeah, I hope most sports people do that, because imagine if you look in the mirror, like you said, every day and say that I want to be better than the guy I saw in the mirror yesterday. I think we go far away. Nisha was telling me the story about how her idol was Leander Pace. And the first time she met him, because I think when in your year he was leading the contingent, if I'm not mistaken.
Correct.
And
he carried the flag in.
Correct. So the minute she got out of the bus, apparently he was standing right there. And he's like, "Hi, how are you?" And all that. And she just flipped. That was a very cute story.
Yeah, like I said, the first few days you're just overawed at the Olympic Village, because you are either living with legends of Indian sport and you're in the environment of legends from sport around the world, and it is extremely it's mind blowing. So while it's Leander and Mahesh Bhupathi who were like really setting very high standards around our time, to just and I shared the same um, house with them, to going to the dining room and sitting across Agassi, or um, many of the legends of sport, whether it was the NBA stars or the runners, everyone's there. Everyone's just a simple common athlete in that space, whatever their achievements otherwise have been. And I told you that was what for me was special.
Yeah, something that
at
you'll
some point.
remember very specifically. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So I want to know what centers you as a swimmer. Specifically when you were at the Olympics in Sydney, and even after that, as a swimmer, like everybody's got their own kinks, right? So Nisha was telling me how for her, it was heavy metal music for some reason, right? She used to listen to some metal before that. Were you a music buff? What was a ritual you'd kind of do? What kind of music do you like?
So I kind of grew out of music, quite early. And that's for me. I realized that, again, it's weird. Okay, I mean, like I said, at times I feel I grew up a little too early. For myself, I kind of got into books. I used to listen to a little bit of music. I had my cranky Walkman that really needed, I didn't
Those are
really
the best.
graduate into a Discman. I had a Walkman and had a few basic songs. And I think with my song selections, I'm still stuck in in the 90s, in the
Let's be
80s
honest,
and
that's not such a
90s.
bad thing. Not such a bad thing at all.
Oh, it's not. It's not. I still enjoy, and it's funny. Like, I often realize that even the kids in the today still like, those, that music of that time. So, so I feel like I've really, I enjoyed it at that stage. But at some point, I grew into books. I started reading a lot. um, I was also, uh, for me, my grounding was my academics. So I did my engineering. I was in my middle of my engineering or I was in my sixth semester of engineering when I went to the Olympics. So, so my education was my grounding. For me, it was a bag full of engineering books that when I traveled for competitions, and picking that up and flipping it and reading and preparing for my next exam was very humbling. So,
It
so
brought you back down from that cloud you were on.
yeah. So for me, that way I had a fantastic balance in life with my academics. So uh, because I led a dual life, okay, when I was very clear at some point that when I was in college, I had to be the best student, and with no baggage of what I was doing in sport. And when I went to the pool, I had to be the best swimmer with no baggage of what was happening in college. So it did make my journey a bit more challenging, but keeping those two lives separate really helped me stay grounded and helped me balance things. And I really then did not really need too many of other stimulators. I could just find my rhythm, find my peace. And towards the end, indeed, up to the Olympics, I think the last couple of years was very crucial in me being able to train smarter than just training harder. And that's
Right.
because of my engineering that I was balancing around the same time. Uh, that I had to really find that window of opportunities and grab those.
Lastly, what I want to ask you is what would be your little message specifically to parents out there who are bringing up kids in sport? What would you like to say to them? And any tidbits, any pieces of advice you'd like to, send their way?
For me, every kid needs to just play and be introduced to sport such that they enjoy it for life and that they have the right fundamental skills. These are the two paramount things that every parent should focus on. The kid should enjoy it, and the kid should be getting the right fundamental skills. I'm not the biggest fan of pushing the kids towards competition. I believe that should and will happen naturally as we create a conducive environment for them to take up the path. But I feel too many talented children give up sport far too early for the wrong reasons. Either they're not, they're not enjoying the sport, or
It's too
they have
competitive.
not been, or they've not been provided the right fundamental skills, which
Okay.
then forces
Okay.
them to plateau very early. The third point, if I would want to just put on the table for the parents, is, save the kid from specializing in a certain sport until they are 12 or 13, and they've been given a few options, and the child chooses to play the sport themselves. So when they should get into competitive sport would be, an important point of attention, because again, I find too many parents pushing kids far too early into competitive sport, and by the time they are 12, 13, 14, I find kids thinking they've achieved too much and giving up sport really early,
Right.
or beginning to hate it.
Yeah.
And these are points that I would want to safeguard kids from.
Right. Awesome. Hakimuddin Habibulla has been sweet enough to join us through this entire bit of conversation. Imagine, we're reaching that Olympics, and he was hoping that India really goes for gold. Hakim, this has been an amazing bit of conversation to hear your story, and thank you so much for chalking out the time. I deeply appreciate it, and I can't wait for everybody to get to hear the story of yours. And it comes from an extra special place as a Josephite. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much, Kay. I really enjoyed sharing some parts of my journey, and look forward to chatting with you.
Thanks for watching. If you like this video, then subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon so you don't miss out on more content.